My name is Gary Holland. I'm the affairs, and most of the candidates know me also in my other role, and that is being the member of the Transition Advisory Group that the charter mandates. I'm wearing the other hat today, the one that I was wearing for several years before I was drafted for the Charter and Transition Mission. I won't be saying much this morning, or this afternoon rather. Hugh Shannon, the acting director, will come forward momentarily and give you a bit of information about our department and how we interface with the other parts of our justice service community. But I do want to welcome all the candidates who have taken time this evening. I do want to also welcome our community partners who you see in the audience here that are helping us in our endeavor, and from day to day we try to maintain a close working relationship with our fire services, our law enforcement, emergency medical and public health agencies. I would also suggest to you that we have extensive contact with the judicial system, and the Honorable Judge Nancy First is here today, and she'll be addressing you shortly as well. We work closely with volunteer emergency response volunteers throughout the county through our emergency management function, and we have a victim advocacy and the reentry and custody mediation function also under our umbrella. Over the past 3 years, just to give you a quick and dirty look at things, the department has streamlined operations. We've introduced internal expense controls and worked very closely to adopt a 5-year strategic plan. So we have not only hit the ground running, we've transformed ourselves in anticipation whether we had a different type of government or not. And fortunately, through that foresight, we'll be better prepared to serve you and serve the citizens of this community once the new regime takes place January 1st. So I want to thank all these candidates here, both for county executive, who you see sitting high up on Olympus, and also the other members that are working very diligently to get elected to the county council and would be their partners in governance. So we hope this exchange will further strengthen your and our understanding of how the county works and serves the citizens of this community. So without further ado, Hugh, I would ask you to come forward. He's the acting director, and he can give you a headline report of the Justice Affairs, Justice Services activities, and how we work through the transition effort, and also a bit about our achievements. Hugh?
Thank you, Gary. Actually, he just gave my presentation, so I don't know what to say. My name is Hugh Sheehan. I'm the Executive Officer for Justice Affairs. I've been the Acting Director in Gary's absence during his work with the transition. There are a couple of brief things that I want to convey to you in this briefing. You've all received materials, the books, the thumb drives. You have access to a lot of information. We're not going to give you a quiz or anything after this, but there is a lot of information there. Some of it can be rather confusing. So we'll try to straighten a couple of things out for you in the short time that we've got together. And then, of course, throughout the remainder course of the campaign, if there are any specific questions you have, you're certainly free to contact our offices, and we will do our best to get you what you need. Just want to start out with 2008. Justice Affairs had a budget of a little over $23 million. We had 180 FTEs, and we were administrating about $12 million worth of grants from Justice, Department of Justice, Homeland Security. Our projected budget for next year is $10 million, 93 FTEs, and we are currently administrating $35 million in grants. So the streamlining process that Director Holland alluded to has gone into effect and has been quite successful. We had a strategic planning process department-wide that actually started at the end of 2008 and has been ongoing throughout this year. We had internal restructurings take place last year and this year, especially in areas of our grants and training program. We also closed the Youth Development Center last year. And then this year has been more of a mission-focused approach, both in pre-transition and during the transition process.
We've already moved some pieces, some smaller pieces that we felt were better suited elsewhere. Our treatment services and MST teams have gone to DCFS. They got all of their referrals from the Department of Children and Family Services. Some of these things seemed kind of no-brainers that we needed to move as soon as we could. Others, some of the larger pieces, of course, will wait until the new government takes over and takes effect. But we've really tried to streamline and focus on our public safety and justice programs. Public safety is made up of the Emergency Management Agency, which would respond to any countywide emergency, trying to coordinate resources to local communities who may be overwhelmed by an incident that takes place in their community or in their nearby communities. We also have emergency information and communication systems. CCOMS is the 911 system for all cellular emergency phone calls. The Cuyahoga Regional Information System runs effectively a data warehouse, although that term will come up again and again in the coming months, but essentially collects information and provides reports to law enforcement as they need information about suspects, etc. We also have our justice programs, which talk mediation. Our mediation program works with the courts, tries to divert some of the traffic out of the judicial system, which is a costly system to go through from start to finish. So mediation tries to divert some of that to cost savings for the courts. We also have our Family Justice Center, which includes now the Witness Victim Program and the Children Who Witness Violence programs. The Family Justice Center is an initiative that has been in planning stages for several years now and is about to come to fruition. It would provide a one-stop center for victims of crime, witnesses to crime, domestic violence, etc. And of course, we still have the Justice and Homeland Security Grant Administration and our own administrative and fiscal offices. So we work closely, obviously, with our community partners. A lot of the grants are tied directly to those community partners and the functions that they serve: fire, EMS, law enforcement. We also have grants in port security. We also work with public works, hospitals, medical, the Board of Health. So we really do interact in a lot of ways in a lot of areas throughout the county. Most of this is based on providing resources before an emergency takes place, before there's a critical need, planning out how we would respond to a disaster, what do local communities need to be prepared, and then provide them with training, equipment, etc. through those grants. So you're going to hear a lot of acronyms too. UAG, the Urban Area Working Group, LEPSI, the local planning committee, emergency planning committee. They work on hazardous materials issues. The PSSC, Public Safety Service Center. That's an idea that needs to take all of our public safety functions, the EMA, the Emergency Operations Center, the EOC, and remove it from our high target zone in the downtown area and get it outside of downtown. We've talked about this for several years. We want to relocate all of our public safety division, the CCOMS unit, CRIS, and EMA out of the downtown area so we can respond better in an emergency. One of the first places that is likely to be targeted would be a downtown area. Also, in the confusion of an emergency, the downtown becomes flooded with traffic and all kinds of other problems. It makes it much harder to respond to an emergency to get people in and out of the EOC. So that's something that's been on our radar, and we're hoping to have a site identified in the next couple of months. So that will be an issue that the new government will need to address almost immediately once we've identified the site, contracting with, and then physically moving those functions out of the downtown. Finally, we're positioned to maximize efficiencies for emergency communications. A couple of other acronyms you'll hear: MARCS, IPICS. You know, CCOMS is working with these agencies, regional agencies. Marks is actually run by the state, but we have a partnership with Lake County and Cuyahoga County to run an emergency communication system. Initially, we had talked about building our own. The price tag started climbing close to $120 million. For about $20–25 million in grant funds, we've partnered with the state, Lake County and Cuyahoga County, and are now almost 100% built out, or just about to be built out on that communication system, which the state owns and the state maintains for us. So we saved close to $100 million from that initial planning. And then finally, the reason that we asked you to be here, the charter does not address public safety specifically, but the national framework, emergency framework, which we operate under, and most of our division operates under, says that local government, local executives are responsible for public safety. That needs to be addressed. People need to know that that's a priority of the new government, if for nothing else, to have that sense of security. So again, you have a lot of material. Any questions that you may have in the ensuing weeks and after, please feel free to contact me in our offices. I appreciate your attendance today. We're going to introduce our moderator. You've all, I think, gotten a chance to chat with him briefly. Isaac Brooks is the managing director of the Partnership, which is a human resource consulting practice. He has a bachelor's of science degree in social sciences from Coppin State University from Baltimore. Mr. Brooks is a member of the Professional Fellow Society of the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve. I introduce to you our moderator, Isaac Brooks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hugh, and good evening, everyone. Let me join in welcoming you to this information sharing portion of this briefing. I'd like to review first the format and the ground rules that we'll be working under this evening. From a format standpoint, and you've noticed this on the back of the programs that you have, questions will be in 3 rounds. Round 1 consists of questions from the county administration offices, and the first question will be directed to all candidates. The second question will be directed exclusively to the county executive candidates. Round 2 involves questions from our community partners. Representing fire is Chief William J. Shaw of the Solon Fire Department, and he'll direct a question to the executive candidates. The fourth question will be from Chief David A. Main, representing police, and he is from the Hunting Valley Police Department. This question will be directed to all candidates. The fifth question will come from the courts. That question will be posed by the Honorable Administrative and Presiding Judge Nancy First of the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. Her question will be directed to executive candidates. Then we'll get to round 3, and round 3 will be from the public. Going through, or at least available this afternoon, will be 3x5 cards. So anyone with a question, please write that question on the card, then raise your hand and someone will come along to collect it. That is the format. Now the ground rules. First, candidates. You're to direct your responses and answers to the audience, not to each other. Okay, this is keeping with our information sharing and not a debate. There are 2 timekeepers here, Lynn Nugent on my left and Ed Little on my right. If you raise your hands, these are important folks. They will make sure that we stay and adhere to the allotted time to answer the questions. During round 1, on question 1, each response will be 1 minute. Also in round 2, the second question for county executives, there's a 2-minute response time for that question. As we go to round 3, the council candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question that comes from police. Executive candidates will have 2 minutes each for questions 3 and 5 from the fire and courts. As we go to round 3, excuse me, there's a 1-minute portion. I might add, there's no penalty for using less time. Didn't like that, did you?
I like it.
Okay. Now, audience, there's a rule for you. There will be no clapping or remarks while candidates are answering questions. If there is a need for you to get additional information from any of the candidates, time will be available following our 7:30 adjournment. Let's begin with question 1. As you mentioned, public safety has not been addressed in the charter establishing a new county government. Tell us how you might convey that public safety is your priority and responsibility. And Ellen Connolly, could we begin with you?
Well, we have 59 cities in the county, and we have 59 police departments and fire departments, or a little bit less. So I think what we have to concentrate on is the mutual aid agreements, working together, the county council candidates being liaison to their particular cities. And of course, we have this, the county operates also this fusion center, the Northeast Ohio Regional Fusion Center. I think as county council, we want to strengthen that organization and make sure that all of the organizations are working together. The primary function is going to be on the executive, and we're going to have to monitor the executive, make sure that the executive is carrying out these tasks. I would intend to propose that we have a public safety committee so that we can work on these issues as a county council.
Thank you. Ms. Graham?
Yes, the safety services are very important to me. I started a citizens group, founded a citizens group, Citizens for a Safer Cleveland. We're about 800 strong. In our community, we're having issues with not feeling safe in our society and different issues going on within the city. So we stood up and we formed a group. To me, this is where my heart is, where my passion is, and what made me stand up to start founding that and carrying on through the county council due to the corruption. Right now, I feel that I will protect that. I think that without our safety services, our businesses can't stay. Our schools are going to be compromised because there's not going to be money for taxpayers. People are going to be leaving the area. So for me, our safety services are huge and important.
Good evening, I'm Laverne Jones-Gore. I think one of the things that we have to look at most importantly when we're talking about safety services is cooperation. I think we've read enough in the newspaper recently that says that some of the standards within our local police departments maybe are not as defined as they should be on how we react to certain incidents, so maybe the county could see to it that as a result of some of the incidents that have happened, that our citizenry could feel comfortable that we were monitoring and looking to see how we can best help the cities that are involved in my particular district, and that's District 9. We have a lot of things we have to do because we also incorporate Cleveland and the southeastern suburbs. So each city has particular interests that are very, very significant to that particular city. And we have to come up with some standards that allow us to help each of them and still provide what is necessary for those that need just maybe a little bit more help. I am extremely concerned about what the Executive Council will be doing with safety services because as a minority representative, I think many of the people now are concerned about it just based on some of the things that are happening in our local county. Thank you.
The Department of Justice Affairs is clearly concerned about its role as a coordinator of the local safety services, and that is really the natural role for the county to play. That and the explorer of new technology, the interoperability task is huge. All those things that cannot be well done separately must be led by the county as the overarching body that cares about the whole justice picture. My special interest goes one layer deeper into the criminal behavior itself. This has been, I taught criminal law, I've written about it. I really do care very much about understanding its origins and making sure that through the human services side of what the county does, we can coordinate both those charged with enforcing the law and those charged with trying to divert people who can be protected from criminal trouble and who can be guided in a safer path.
Thank you. Mr. Ellison.
My work in the anti-nuclear and environmental movements has largely been oriented around public safety. Many of the economic problems we face in Cuyahoga County have an environmental component that is largely a concern because of public safety. In addition to routine public safety considerations, we must be better prepared for natural and man-made emergencies. Specifically, I will ask Sheriff Reed to continue his service and convene a series of meetings with the Sheriff's Department, FEMA, and the other federal agencies, the other chief executives of the county, and the law enforcement and public safety administrators of the various municipalities to discuss issues of communication, coordination, cooperation, and joint procurement. We will also discuss and determine potential areas where more efficiency and effectiveness can be achieved. Once the strategy is developed by these groups, we will need to follow through with implementation and make sure our goals are met.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Matt Dolan. You'll know it's a priority and responsibility for two ways. First, by attitude. My attitude toward law enforcement and all the issues you're involved in is forged from 4 years as being a chief assistant prosecutor out in Cuyahoga County, working with you on a day-to-day basis, both on the criminal, law enforcement side and the administrative side, representing the sheriff. You're also going to know it by the hires. I'll be responsible for a law director. I'm going to make sure that law director understands its relationship with the prosecutor's office. We're also going to have to hire a medical examiner. We're going to make sure that that medical examiner knows he or she will be able to be independent and be able to make the right call to assist with law enforcement officers. And we're going to show an attitude of collaboration and recognize that we need to work beyond municipality lines, and even as we learned today, and I knew in my capacity as Cuyahoga, beyond county lines, to recognize that law enforcement does not know boundaries.
Safety and the protection of the citizenry is the #1 responsibility of government. This is its #1 responsibility. How to get there. If you look at my platform, I focus on my number one focus is on education, early education. I talk about this over and over again. And in there, it's more than reading, writing, and calculating. It's knowing how to take care of yourself and knowing how to treat one another. We need to renew that feeling among the young people. If we don't do that, nothing else will matter. And then what I'd like to do also is, turning to violence, is to make sure that our children understand what violence is and the dangers of guns. So I would propose that we have our sheriff department, at an appropriate age, have those students come and fire a pistol to find out it's not what it's like on television.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Kipp. I'm a candidate in District 7. With all its complexities of public safety and what goes into it, it really boils down to a quality of life issue. And I've spent the last 10 years trying to promote the city of Cleveland's neighborhoods. But District 7 is an entirely urban district within the city. And two of the biggest concerns that we have trying to attract people into the city of Cleveland comes down to crime and it comes down to education. So obviously it is paramount for us to address this issue. It was great and refreshing to hear about the streamlining effort that's taking place here at the Department of Justice Affairs. But as has been noted by other candidates, we do have a very fragmented county. We have 59 municipalities. We have every little community trying to address these bigger issues of public safety. And I'd really kind of preach and work to encourage a spirit of regionalism where we can work together to address these concerns, because it will have an immediate impact on the livability of our neighborhoods and literally the business friendliness of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Greenspan, District 1. Clearly, public safety is a priority that the county needs to address, but we need to address it in a very specific way insofar as voluntary collaboration between the communities. I am not for legislating collaboration. I speak from a very unique set of skills, and that I was on the founding city council of the largest city in the country ever to incorporate, a city of nearly 100,000 people. And I say that, and I bring that experience to the table because we had to bring up our own police and fire, our own public safety departments from the ground up. And we brought up our own police department 7 months after we were incorporated, in our fire department 5 months after that. And it was no small feat. We had 125 officers, 125 firefighters. Our departments were set up with the intent to collaborate with neighboring municipalities. So I have that unique set of skills, those experiences that I bring to the table. So I would clearly state that public safety is a priority of the county, but through voluntary collaboration. Thank you.
I'm Dale Miller, running for County Council District 2, and when you include the court systems and justice affairs, something like 1/3 to 40% of the county's general fund budget is justice related. So we are going to have to be heavily involved in working on justice issues. And I think it's very important that we break down the silos between justice functions and human services. And I would place a lot of emphasis on reentry. If we can help people do better at coming out of the criminal justice system, we can improve public safety and economic development. And finally, I would support strong cooperation between the sheriff's office and the municipal police departments, and voluntary cooperation among the municipal police departments. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard already that the Department of Justice Affairs does a number of things in the community, including the cellular 911 dispatch, providing critical data and information to police officers in the field, and. How do you see, as a potential executive of the council, the Department of Justice Affairs continuing to assist you in making public safety your priority and responsibility? Mr. Ellison, will you begin?
It's clear that under current conditions, just maintaining current levels of law enforcement personnel in the various municipalities is difficult, if not impossible. Ironically, the maintenance of public safety and law enforcement is critical to our successful transition and to economic redevelopment. If elected, I will need the Department of Justice Affairs to help improve communications, coordinations, and information flow among the law enforcement agencies of the municipal jurisdictions and with new civilian defense structures. My program for Cuyahoga County, which you can see in my political broadside disguised as a newspaper out on the table, mentions the creation of a countywide laborers corps and broadcasting cooperative, both of which would be important decentralized components of an emergency preparedness in the event of a compromised communication network caused by natural or man-made disasters. We need to be prepared for possible terrorist attacks on our electric grid or power generating stations, and for things like biological attacks, hazardous waste accidents, and natural disasters. The widespread understanding and involvement of the community in these preparations and our response plan is critical to any success.
Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned, you're going to know it's a priority by attitude, and I would hope that we could work together in defining that attitude. By that I mean, in terms of the county and justice affairs, it's obviously the communication, and I mean by that the communication being able to make sure that police departments and fire departments and emergency EMA throughout the county can communicate. And that so we are prepared for whatever comes down the pike. And I know as the county, I have some unique experience in my legal background where I was a lawyer for Cuyahoga County and Delaware County, and talking about the 800 megahertz system. And it was very important that we prevailed upon the court to say there had to be a coordinated effort to make sure that there was communication. You have already taken huge steps as a department, which should be applauded, to implement communications with courts, creating the Family Justice Center so that the victims don't have to go through multiple interviews, and that there's a more streamlined effort in terms of providing assistance there, and also working with the law enforcement. And of course, I'm a huge fan of mediation. I do believe that we need to work together with the courts, and I would look forward to working with the administrative judge to make certain that we are looking at the individual and deciding what is the best role for that individual. How can we meet our public safety needs without breaking the bank? And I think we have to work together to make sure that we do that. And then I would applaud the idea that we engage in relationships with the state. I think we, being the largest county in the state, can be leaders, but we're going to need state assistance both in terms of dollars and in terms of freedoms to be able to work with other counties.
About 6 weeks ago, I received a letter from Gary Holland, and it had with it a couple of addendums, one 50 pages and another were 10 pages, and so I was very excited about getting that package. But having read it, I want to tell you that of all the agencies that we've been to, and trust me, we've been to a lot, this agency has presented me, from my perspective, with the best proposal. I mean, just look at this question. This question says, how do you see DOJ continuing to assist you in making public safety your priority and responsibility? How can we help you? You're the only agency that's come with this kind of question. All of the other agencies, all of the other people who we've talked to, try to convince us that theirs is the toughest job, that theirs the organization that needs more money. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Not what you guys have done, which is more like ask not what you can do for. So I appreciate that. I appreciate this question. So more of this, more of this. You are an example. I think we can save $200 million a year in the county in 4 years. I know how to do this with new business systems. You are a model of this. Your Family Justice Center is a model for this. Collaborative form of delivery of service. Teamwork, innovation, accountability. So my answer to you is come back again with the same message that you gave us in this 50 pages. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Chief Lane has a question for the executive candidates. Chief Lane?
Chief Shaw.
Chief Shaw. My apologies. Chief Shaw.
The executive candidates, what is your #1 goal to enhance preparedness of fire and EMS first responders in Cuyahoga County?
I think that we have to be able to communicate, and if we don't have a uniform language and means of communication that's reliable, and a backup means of communication, then that would be something that would need to be achieved. Now, I can't answer that specifically because I'm not certain that these mechanisms aren't already in place. But I know that in an emergency, we have to be able to communicate. And if we can't communicate under our first plan, we need a backup plan to communicate. So that would be my #1 thing, just to be sure that we can communicate in an emergency, any kind of emergency.
Well, I'm going to pick up where Dave left off, and he said, communication, as I talked about, that's how you can assist me. So the question is, what is my number one priority? As the leader of this county with the biggest microphone, the best thing I can do to enhance public safety is use the bullet pulpit to educate our citizens. To educate the system, to educate citizens of the dangers we face, of the reasonable steps that we have to take to prepare for those dangers, and also talk about the daily dangers that we face, that law enforcement every single day, and fire and EMA, and the administration cost of running jails, and using the bullet pulpit perhaps to see if there's a way we can collaborate on the city and the county. Why do we have two entities running a jail? We can work together. So to enhance, the number one goal to enhance would be to work with you to use this microphone and the bullet pulpit of our office to communicate with the citizens so that you can do your job.
Thank you. Skip beyond.
The work you've already started is going to go a long way toward reaching the goal that I would have. I would have a goal where we don't have redundancy, we have total integration of systems, so that when something happens, everyone is on the same page and everyone gets communicated to. It seems that you are on track to get there. I would encourage that we tap into the resources of one community, and one community has just gotten some serious dollars to spread their broadband activity a little further, so we can go out to the adjoining counties also. But on another hand, my business is business productivity using software technology. And our mainline product right now is a product for scheduling the healthcare workforce. And my ambition prior to deciding to run for county executive was to expand that technology. It's called Doctors on Call software, to include all of the emergency responders, the police, the fire, all of the health people, so that in case of an emergency, you know who to get to and how to get to them. And that's the kind of technology that I build and champion. Maybe like Mr. Lansky, I can give it to the county for $1 a year.
Now, Chief May, representing the police department, and this question is posed to the council candidates. And we'll begin with Mr. Miller in responding.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. In addition to my 4 years presently with the Village of Hunting Valley, I spent 30 years with the Cuyahoga Police Department, last 7 years as chief, and so I think I bring a perspective of not only a large inner ring suburb and all the issues entailed with that, but also a small outlying community. The success of all law enforcement is predicated on the gathering of information and the effective and efficient sharing of that information. The Cuyahoga Regional Information System, CRIS, is governed by a board of advisors that includes all the law enforcement stakeholders in the county. As you have heard in your briefings, CRIS serves as an integral part of the platform paramount to the success of the police mission. As county council candidates, how do you envision the role of CRIS in the county government reformation, and what impact should local law enforcement have in a reformed county government structure? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and I think it is the responsibility of the new county government to create a seamless transition to the new system, so that the information can continue to be provided effectively. And I believe it's also important that each member of council work with the law enforcement agencies within their district and make sure that there is close communication and cooperation between the county, the sheriff's department, and the local governments. And so I think it's important that we share information, that we work together, and that we continue to see that we have the highest quality information systems in public safety in Cuyahoga County.
Thank you, Dave Greenspan, District 1. voluntary collaboration and communication is going to be the key to this county succeeding, whether you're talking about public safety or we're talking about economic development, whatever the topic is. I have ridden with 5 of the 6 police departments in my district, and I have done so to better understand the challenges that they face, that the law enforcement officers face within my particular district. And it has served me very well to understand the challenges, the advantages that they face, the disadvantages that are out there. That's where it comes from. That's where, when I mentioned communication, we need to be engaged with our local law enforcement officers. We need to be engaged with our fire departments to understand what their needs are, because the county has no true responsibility as it relates to funding these organizations. What we need to do is be a strong voice and an advocate for collaboration between the various public safety service entities. And so I would say number 1 is a voluntary collaboration, but number 2, strong communication between the council members and their law enforcement and public safety services.
Mr. Kidd.
Well, you certainly heard already the importance of public safety and how it relates to the citizens of Cuyahoga County and the views of some of the candidates up here. Certainly when we think of first responders, we immediately think of police and fire and EMS. And, I think it's fair to say citizens want and expect the best and the brightest to be performing those services of first responders, but it's also very fair to say that those first responders are armed with the right information, the right technology, and the right equipment in order to do their job. And certainly, as a member of county council, that's something I would work with the public safety forces to ensure we have the right information from you, and it does go back to that communication issue, that it is a mutual communication pattern where we're learning from you and you're learning from us, and we are working to provide the best possible services to our residents. Thank you.
Mr. Taft.
Seems to me we have, I'm Rick Taft, the District 6 candidate. Seems to me we're touching on 2 models here. The first model that has drawn the most attention is the one of the County Justice Affairs Department as a service provider. And there we are cast in the role of listening very attentively and professionally with good technical competence to the needs of the local law enforcement officers. And that's really what Chris does now, I believe, is provide a central capacity in the communications realm. That role continues, it's constantly evolving, and it's one being attended. The other role is a leadership one for the county where it can look at what I call the behavioral, the cultural base of criminal justice, and that does invite a holistic countywide view where the county has an opportunity to lead in the thinking about what works well to build a safer county from a behavioral side of things.
Ms. Jones-Gore.
I am so grateful, and this is Laura Jones-Gore, District 9, that you have that experience coming from Euclid and Hunting Valley, because you have a very strong understanding of what we're involved in District 9, because we go from one of the poorest districts in Ward 4 in the country to one of the wealthiest bedroom communities of Shaker Heights. I think one of the things that we can offer to you and many of the officers like you is a situation where training and communication would be available to you. Because one of the things I'm very certain of is sometimes some things get lost in communication when you're talking about the poorest neighborhood to the wealthiest neighborhood. The needs are different, but I think if we standardize training and provide that to our officers in the field, I think we'll come up with a situation that we'll have a region that can sell anything, and that's including jobs, because we'll have a safe street environment for all of our community members. Thank you.
Ms. Graham.
Lynn Graham, District 2. My husband is a Cleveland firefighter, and I, once again, take our services serious. I know communication has been a problem within the Cleveland area. I'm sure it goes across the board. I think there needs to be a lot of cross-training. I think that all of our communications, our data entry needs to interlock with other communities so everybody can communicate together. From what I'm hearing, there's been different issues going on with police, EMS, and fire communication when they get one call on response times and this type of thing. I think it's huge. It's huge to work with law enforcement, police, fire, EMS, all of our safety services, as well as our hospitals when we're doing control for, I'm sorry, it just slipped my mind, there we go, I'm done.
Thank you.
Ellen Connolly, District 9. I was a judge of the Cleveland Municipal Court for 24 years. I've served as a special prosecutor of the city of Cleveland. I've been a teacher of criminal law, and I had a lot of contact with the police department. I know about the CRIS system, and I know the importance of making sure that the information is available to the courts. I've seen people sit in jail for 2 or 3 days and they were the wrong person because we didn't get the proper information on them. And so that CRIS is very important to the courts, and that saves money. I won't go into the details, but it saves money a lot to all the cities if we get the right information. District 9 has North Randall in our district, and North Randall has very many financial problems, so we're using the Sheriff's Department. We have to be able to deal with these small cities that are not going to be able to provide adequate police and fire in the future. So those are the kind of cooperative avenues that we're going to have to look at. Once again, the county council is going to have to appoint a public safety committee that's going to have members that will focus on these particular problems so that they can bring that, because every council member can't be an expert in every single thing. So we're going to have a strong county safety committee that will focus on these areas for the council.
Thank you. Our third community partner, of course. Question from Judge first.
Good evening. Thank you for your kind invitation, Mr. Brooks, Mr. Holland, and Mr. Shannon, all the council candidates, and certainly the executive candidates, and for those who are seated in the room appearing. I'm Judge Nancy First. I'm the administrative presiding judge in the Court of Common Pleas. I'm one of 34 in the general division, one among equals. And like many citizens here, I'm very happy to be here tonight because we're all watching with great interest as to the outcome. It will be a new day, certainly starting next year. I think just as a matter of background, I want to let you all know that I put in the back of the, or at the door, our report because it helps you understand the breadth and scope of the work that this court does, and I'll present that to you also. But what we are, we have 34 judges in the general division. There is also a probate, domestic relations, and juvenile division as well. In the juvenile division, the Juvenile Justice Detention Center, which is a new facility that you'll have to deal with, is coming online here in the next few months. As you know, our court deals with the civil cases and all foreclosure docket, foreclosure mediation, and also the felony criminal docket. We are the largest state court in the state of Ohio. And I can have to say that I think we are a separate arm. We know that you acknowledge that and appreciate that difference, that we are a separate branch of government, and we have in the past enjoyed a very good relationship with the county commissioners. We interface with you as the separate form of government in budgeting matters. What is it that, I guess I would ask the same question to you that you were asked in question 2, is what can we, the courts, do to help you or to assist you if you were to assume the duties of the new executive?
Scipione, what do you do with that?
Thank you, Judge, for being here, and I appreciate that question. I think maybe there's 3 areas that I would look at, and I met with Judge Bianca, and what I would like to do is I focused on the 10,000 foreclosed properties we have, the tens of thousands of vacant properties that are out there. We need to get a hold of them all. We need to capture them now while time is right, and prevent corporations that have no foothold in Ohio from buying up that stuff and selling them out on the internet, sending them to speculators, and et cetera, et cetera. Judge Bianca knows what we need to do. We need to tap into the judicial system to make that foreclosure process more efficient and more cost effective. So that would be number 1. Number 2, we've learned a lot about recidivism and all of this, and what I keep coming back to is prevention. Prevention and the education piece. But also, as you look at the large numbers of people who we're sending to jail. We've got to compromise here. We need to have a situation where we don't send people for minor drug offenses and send them to prisons and make real criminals out of them. So I think there's a role that you can play in there. And finally, you know, to close this chapter on corruption, I think in the first 100 days or so, we are going to have to clean house. We're going to have to clean house from whoever's remaining in county service that are political appointees and cronies. We've got to get rid of them. And you know, I don't know how exactly to do that. All I know is we have to do that. And I would look to the judicial system for some advice as to how we can expedite that process.
Mr. Nolan?
Thank you, Isaac. I neglected, I was supposed to do this at the beginning. I apologize. I'm going to need to leave a little bit early, so if you see me slip away. Judge, thank you. Thank you for that question. And I love the attitude because the courts are 21% of the county budget. The second largest item behind Health and Human Services, but unlike Health and Human Services, the majority of the county budget for the courts comes from our local tax dollars. I have no intention as a county executive, even though I'm a lawyer and I have quite opinions on what judges do, in interfering with your day-to-day activities of the court. But the question is, how can we interface when it comes to budgeting? And I would think that as long as you're administrative judge and I'm county executive, that I would invite you to sit down and let's have a global perspective of where the county is in terms of its revenue and what we have done in the non-judicial portions of the budget, and see if there's not efforts to be done at the court level to equal that. And by that I mean working with the judges to make certain that we are being as efficient as we can in scheduling, working with probation officers and the law enforcement officers to make sure that we're limiting as much overtime as we possibly can. And then to be more provocative, to look at the county again and recognize we're the largest county in Ohio, but our judges are required to be experts in criminal law and civil law and corporate matters and domestic is separated out. That perhaps we should look to the success of the drug courts, and maybe shouldn't we have bifurcate the courts and say, shouldn't we have maybe just all civil division courts, maybe have temporary criminal division courts, so that the citizens know that we are getting a jurist who is very proficient in the issues before them. And I think that gives a sense of security as well. So I know over time, I love the question, and I think there's a great relationship that can continue.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
I like what Matt Dolan said pretty well, so rather than repeat everything he just said, as though I could, my program out in the hallway calls for swift, just administration of justice, and I think that if the courts could operate as efficiently as possible, that would be as much help as anything. But I'd like to talk about the thing you said about the judicial branch being the third branch of government. And there have been 3 county prosecutors in most of our lifetimes in Cuyahoga County. And it's one common element throughout all of our lifetimes history of Cuyahoga County. If we had had a non-politicized, non-partisan county prosecutor 10 years ago, we might have been able to put Frank Russo behind bars. Because the office is politicized, because it's a partisan office, and because people can serve in that office in an unlimited number of terms, justice really isn't done the way it should be in Cuyahoga County. And we're not finished reforming county government until we reform the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. And so I would like to suggest and call for, and I would like everyone in this room's help, to pass a reform that would limit the county prosecutor to 2 4-year terms, that would make the office nonpartisan, and that would prohibit that person from running for public office for at least 2 years after they have left the office of county prosecutor. There.
Thank you. We are now moving to round 3. And round 3 consists of questions from the audience, and I have questions from the audience. These are directed to all candidates. We'll begin with Ms. Connolly in responding. And the first question is, beginning in fiscal year 2006, the Department of Justice Affairs has brought in approximately $40 million in justice and homeland security funding. Our communities depend on these resources for programs, equipment, training, and emergency response. Tell us how you will ensure that we continue successfully bringing in these kinds of resources into Cuyahoga County.
Well, we're going to have to work with the various agencies that use these funds. First of all, we have to make sure that people who are appointed to boards are willing to serve, are going to serve, and going to take the time. We also have to make sure that these agencies that get the funds are using, are acting efficiently. I think that we can also save a great deal of money. I don't know if all of you know, but we are the only county in the state that is paying for the State Court of Appeals. The 8th District Court of Appeals is a State Court of Appeals. But Cuyahoga County pays their rent, we pay the salaries, we pay the law clerk. We shouldn't be doing that. The state should be paying for that. We also have problems that we can save a tremendous amount of money for over-indictments. It's too long to explain, but when people are over-indicted, we pay a lot of money for lawyers that we wouldn't have to pay. So I'm going to work on that Justice Affairs Committee to streamline. I have volunteered since after my 24 years on the bench. I was a visiting judge. I volunteered on the Court Reform Committee, spent a lot of time on it. So I'm going to be saving money through that, through oversight and supervision.
Thank you. Ms. Grant.
I know that some departments want us to get reassurance of what we're going to give them, what we can do, and what we can stay and maintain. Right now, I believe that we need complete audits done in all the departments to find out where duplications of services are, where our money is best utilized. For me, I do stand strong with our safety services, but I know that we still have to go through and work in a bipartisan way within council once we're elected, and go through and work with the executive and find out what all the checks and balances are, what all the reports are in each department for us to really assess where money is going to stay or be or have to merge groups and that type of thing. So I really love to answer that with a straight answer, but until we vote on the issues and have all the information in front of us, and once again, county services and our safety services are very important.
Thank you. Ms. Jones-Gore.
Hi, I'm Laverne Jones-Gore. One of the things I think we have to look at, I'm a former lobbyist for the state of Ohio. And one of the things and I have an MPH in public health, so when you're talking about grant writing, one of the things you have to do is, I don't think we have enough money. I don't think we receive enough money that's available to us. I think that we have federal grant funds that we have not applied for. We need to be in Washington lobbying for those funds. We need to be sitting up in a situation that ensures us that the money is being utilized properly. And I'm not so certain about that based on the county and many of the things we've learned in the past, but I'm certain that we have a group of individuals that are working within county government that know exactly how we can do this best. And they know exactly how we can utilize these funds. But I assure you that there are grants out there. We need grant writers and we need people at the level of sophistication that can go out and pursue the grants. They're called lobbyists. They're called finding the money and bringing it home. We have a lot of special situations here within Cuyahoga County. And one of the things we have is we're the poorest city in America. We need to turn that around, but we also need to use it while we've got it. It's called making hay while the sun shines. Let's go get the money that's deserved this region. And we can do that, and everyone in this. I spent time talking to many people within Cuyahoga. They know where we can get the money. They want to go after it, and I'm willing to go after it for them. Thank you.
Mr. Tabb?
I hear the question is, how can we as new council members or new executives help the Department of Justice Affairs bring in what are essentially state and federal dollars. At the beginning of this session, we were told about an agency which has 93 employees and administers $35 million in third-party grants. That is a success story. This is an operation that ain't broke, and our job as new participants is to understand it, help it function, help it continue to function well, support what's already being done in an excellent fashion. One other thing, besides that kind of technical understanding and support of the very grant-seeking process, I think the county is well enough positioned as a major urban county vis-a-vis the whole country to become a theoretical leader where we gather together the best thinking, best practices we can find from every part of our system and enlighten our grant seeking with excellent and groundbreaking theory.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis.
In order to maintain funding sources for justice and homeland security activities, I believe it's essential to devote adequate resources to those individuals who can identify opportunities and prepare funding applications. In fact, we need to seek additional funds to finance improvements to our emergency preparedness. At the same time, we need to be much more transparent with our revenues and expenditures so that the residents of Cuyahoga County understand the importance of passing levies and collecting taxes as they relate to their own safety and security and that of their neighbors. I'm as outraged as anyone when government wastes our money, like at the Ameritrust building and even potentially at the medical mart. But when it comes to providing the services that we as a community need, we can't have a fundamentalist anti-tax attitude. We need to change our attitude towards taxation and the provision of services that we want.
Thank you.
To complement your success, you need an advocate in Washington, you need an advocate in Columbus. I'm the only one of the executive state candidates who has recent state experience. I don't know which governor it's going to be, I don't know which speaker it's going to be, but I know both of them, and I know the Senate Majority Leader, and I have relationships with Congress. You're going to have to continue your success, use the bully pulpit and the microphone, like I said before, to advocate for Cuyahoga County in both capitals.
I have a PhD, and if you don't know what that means, it stands for Pilot, Higher, and Deeper. I am a great grant writer. I've got grants from the state, from the federal government. I know how to get those grants.
What are the drivers?
What are the drivers of the new economy?
Where the grants are going to be offered.
And where the grants are going to be offered are in education and healthcare and the environment.
That's where we have to go
and look for the grants.
You're doing a great job.
Now, you're doing a great job here, as was mentioned. 93 people, $35 million is awesome. But we need to replicate that across every department. And again, let me reiterate, we've got to learn and implement what you've discovered and are implementing day in and day out.
Thank you, Jeff Kipp. Thank you, Jeff Kipp, District 7. You know, you've heard the themes repeatedly about accountability and efficiency. Two very primary components to what this new government stands for and what it will become. If you've heard me speak before, I also talked about the importance of Cuyahoga County leading by example. So I think it starts with the ladies and gentlemen up here that are going to sit in the county executive seat, as well as the county council, and really figuring out to make sure we are working every day towards making our government more accountable and more efficient, but then identifying not just the programs and departments that the county is running, so they do the same, but also the funded agencies we work with. To repeat what's been said, I think the Department of Justice Affairs has a very successful track record. I think it should be and needs to be rewarded and used it as an example for other county departments to be able to follow suit.
Thank you, Dave Greenspan. Thank you, Dave Greenspan, District 1. There's one key thing that we need to understand in what county council role is. We are effectively a board of directors for corporation. It is our goal. We are charged with providing vision for this county to assist the executive in implementing that vision. We need to understand what we want before we can go out and get it. We need to understand the criteria and the steps to achieve the objective of receiving additional grants and loans and funding sources that will help us deliver the highest quality service for the best and most effective use of our taxpayer dollars. Whether we're talking about Homeland Security grants, whether we're talking about economic development opportunities, we need to first sit down and understand and set a vision for what our county and the constituents and the residents and the businesses of our county want to be. So the first thing I would do is we need to understand our visions, we need to understand the steps to obtain the additional funding we're going to need, and we need to set a plan to make sure that we achieve that goal. Thank you.
Sunny Simon, District 11. My position on this is we have an absolute opportunity now with this new county charter to provide a collaboration among the courts. I'm a domestic relations attorney primarily, and I've seen how the juvenile court system, the domestic relations system work side by side but not together. And a way to effectuate maximize grant opportunities, I believe, from that standpoint is to start looking at our courts as a collaborative body. We now have the Juvenile Justice Center that's being moved and will be moved, but maybe there's a way yet to connect those two and to collaborate on resources. So that's one perspective, I think, that as a county council member that I would be able to bring to the table.
Dale Miller, District 2, and between what Rick Taft and Matt Dolan said, they kind of covered it. You need three things. You need to maintain that great application writing capability in the Department of Justice Affairs. You also need good theory and good ideas for proposals. And you also need an effective operation in lobbying the state and federal government. And if I'm elected, my microphone would be a lot smaller than Matt Dolan's, but I do have that state government experience as well, and I think that I could be very helpful. And in doing so, I would work in coordination with the county executives. As a county council member, I can't go out on my own and start lobbying the state and federal government. It would be in close cooperation with the executives' efforts.
Thank you very much. This is another 1-minute response question, and I'm going to try to combine two, and they deal with family justice and juvenile justice. The needs of youth in our community are great. Their issues come to the door of the juvenile justice system. In your role, as either a council member or the county executive, what would you propose to improve the system so it can meet the needs collaboratively for youth and their families? Ms. Connolly?
Well, you can't tell judges what to do. And the courts are set up by the Constitution of the state of Ohio. I think that what we need to do most importantly is work in education, in early childhood education. The county council cannot go out and tell our various school districts what to do, but we can work in early childhood education to provide additional education. We can work with Tri-C in terms of programs there, job training programs. When I was in school, you went to East Tech or West Tech and you learned a skill while you were in high school. We could promote those kinds of things, but as Mr. Greenspan said, we can't do everything in this county council. We have an advisory role. We are concerned about these things, but we have to work with the court system, particularly provide grants for certain programs. The Cleveland Municipal Court has a special program, Get on Track. So those kinds of things. Education instead of jail.
I pretty much agree with the same thing that you're saying here. It's education, it's helping out with
different departments to
group together. Right now, we're doing assessments on. I'm sorry, I have to pass on this.
Jones score. I think one of the things we can look at is when we're talking about we can't tell judges what to do, we can't. But as a community, we can put our attention to what we expect and our expectations of the people that we elect. Judges are elected. And as long as judges are elected, we have a situation where we can say we want to put family and children first. We want to put people first. I'm certain every officer in this room hates it when he sees a 15-year-old going down the wrong direction. He wants to take him home and he wants to say, here, take care of your kid. He doesn't want to lock this kid up. He doesn't want to lock this kid up. So when we're talking about judges, and not being elected. I'm saying to you, we have an opportunity and a responsibility for our children. One of the reasons we're having such a hard time in our community is because poverty. One of the things poverty does, and you don't have when you don't have economic development, is you produce crime. And the young people are just out there watching TV. We need to develop a situation where we can train, we can educate, and we can show them children the right way to go. Perhaps some community outreach that involves the police departments, that they can become inclusive in. And they can help families who, maybe a teen mother who had a child who we can bring back into the system. We don't have to give up on our children. Because they counted on us. Because they counted on us. I have 3 sons, and I didn't give up on either one of them. And I believe they turned out to be great kids because I was there for them. As a community, I think we need to adhere to that and be there for our children. And the judicial system must maintain a responsibility to see that as a community, we are interested in our children and not locking them up.
I certainly like hearing the passion in your voice as you speak about this. I hope I share your family values in the very best sense. We're heading into a wonderfully complex organization in the county, and it's going to be very easy to step on toes. But there's one way we can do something which simply does not step on any toes, and that is to have what I have come to call a strategic conversation, where we are asking every participant in a particular endeavor, in this case the endeavor of crime prevention, to share their best thinking with us, and we will try to build a place, a strategic framework where we can pull together these thoughts and try to develop realism and candor and a view of the whole, a good longitudinal timeline, good demographics, where we really can become a leader in good thinking about how we can have a criminal justice system that administers justice but also deters crime.
I'm not exactly sure of the precise wording of the question, but the answer that I'd like to propose is that we make the court unnecessary. The new charter promises and puts forward this idea that we're to provide for the well-being and economic prosperity of all of the residents of the county. And if we're to take the charter seriously, then we need to rethink the way we're dealing with each other and with our money. So I've proposed a plan of economic and cultural unity where we actually start taking care of each other as a community as a whole, and stop dividing ourselves and find ways of bridging the gaps and treating each other as fellow human beings in the largest human concentration on the southern shore of this great big body of fresh water, Lake Erie, one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. And that we start treating each other like fellow human beings living in the same county, and we start taking care of each other. There's a lot more about this in this newspaper. There's no way I can do it in a minute.
I think Judge Connolly said it well, but where I might deviate from her is that we have the ability as the county to impact these youth and families from the Department of Family Services. And I have run on a platform that we must recognize that we cannot no longer work in these issues in silos, that we have to create a wraparound service. Because unfortunately, any youth or any family that's engaged in the juvenile justice system probably has other needs that are served by the county. And if Department of Family Services does not know a youth is down at the juvenile center and does not communicate with the parents, and the parents aren't getting the help that they need, we're running on a treadmill, we're not moving forward. So as a county, we must create a wraparound service. The transition team calls it no wrong door policy, so that when you engage in the county, you know, all the needs that you have are aware of, so that you can get served well.
Yeah, I agree with Matt about the wraparound services, and an example of that is the Family Justice Center that this organization is about to launch. But prevention and early education is the long-term solution to this. Now, my proposal, back my business card to get up out there, my #1 goal would be 0 to 8 years old, early education. This means expanding the great programs we have right now in early education, like Invest in Children, expanding it from reaching 1,000 to the 12,000 that are needed, but also now and here's the rub, pushing it into the 3rd grade. Because the issue, the research shows that you can do a great job in these Head Start-like programs, but if you stop at K, by the 3rd grade, you've lost all of your advantage. We need to push that to the 3rd grade. We need to pull together all of the school districts, the teachers' unions, and make sure that by grade 3, read, write, calculate, know how to take care of yourself, and know how to treat your fellows. And I saw that then.
Mr. Kip?
Thank you, Jeff Kip, District 7. Obviously, it's very unfortunate if families and children get pulled into the justice system, but if they do get pulled in, it's for a reason. And we can sit here and preach about accountability from the leaders of the county. Yeah, there's a kind of accountability factor with our citizens as well. You know, if we're going to allocate resources, I would echo some of the points made that I would love to see those resources and funds geared towards preventative measures. Issues like early childhood education, after-school programs, mentoring programs, family preservation courses. That is really where I would love to see those funds spent in order to try to prevent families and children from getting into the system in the first place.
Great, thank you, Dave Greenspan, District 1. Obviously, there is a separation of power, and we need to respect that between the judicial, executive, and legislative bodies. We have to understand what we control and be very focused on what we can control. Obviously, Health and Human Services is a big component of our budget, and obviously we have some clear responsibility there. This is where I mentioned earlier about touching on vision. And what is it we want to do? What is it we want to be? But more importantly, and all too often these organizations are left out, we have a lot of community-based organizations that provide social services. We need to incorporate them. We talk about the word collaboration, you hear that word a lot. We need to work with the organizations that are in the communities providing some very needed services, incorporate them into the vision of what Health and Human Services does. That way, as we engage our communities, when our children and when our families leave, whether it be the court system, where they leave the current Health and Human Services program, they're back into their local communities, and there's a support system that's there to help them and to engage them so that we don't see them showing back up in the court system. So our police officers don't have to keep rearresting some of the same people. So collaboration within our Health and Human Services and our community-based organizations is key. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stein?
Thank you very much. One program that I see as essential for preventing youth from ending up in the justice system is the volunteer juvenile diversion program through juvenile court, where I sat as a volunteer juvenile magistrate in South Euclid. This gets the kids at the front line before they end up in the system downtown. It's an effective way for them to learn immediately the consequences of their actions. Without this program, these kids end up 6 months down the line, ending up in the system, and by then forget why they're there in the first place. So this program needs to be expanded, it needs to be funded. It actually saves money in the end, and this is one project that I want to see expanded, and also to be collaborative within District 11, so the cities can pool their resources and get to this issue at the beginning, so at the end the kids can end up with a brighter future.
Mr. Miller?
Dale Miller, District 2, and as Judge Connolly said, every council member can't be an expert in all things, and I would tend to focus on the human services system, which I know a lot better than the criminal justice system, and I would work on trying to get that system to really take a preventive focus, and I would put a lot of emphasis on early childhood education and fatherhood programs and domestic violence prevention. Studies show that when very young children have traumatic experiences, it has profoundly negative impacts on how well they do in life, including legal and criminal aspects. And finally, I would second what Dave Greenspan said about the importance of working together with the community-based organizations, because an awful lot of really good work is being done there, and we need to work with them and encourage and help them.
Thank you. And this is our final question for the evening, and it's addressed to all candidates. It's 1 minute time period. Given the current county staffing structure and the lack of merit or incentives over the last 5 years, what messages do you have for current employees to stay committed and dedicated to public service? Mr. Miller, why don't we begin?
The message that I would have is that that Cuyahoga County desperately needs committed, quality, and dedicated people to continue working for our county, and we have a lot of them. And I would be frank and say we're facing a $19 million deficit in 2011, and it's probably going to be more than that when the impact of state cutbacks that roll back to the county is factored in. So I don't think we're going to be able to do a whole lot in terms of compensation. And so I think we're going to have to try to improve working conditions to create a good climate of working together and encourage people to stick with us and work to really make a positive difference for our community.
Thank you. Ms. Simon.
Thank you. My message would be to be patient, that we are going to need some time with this new charter government to allow the economic development engine to kick in, and we do appreciate the talent that's there. I've seen it firsthand. My work as a lawyer, I'm all around the Justice Center and appreciate the talent that's there. So I think the message would be patient, because we're going to have a new day in this county where we're going to be able to make things happen, and hopefully everybody can be on board to join us with that.
Thank you, Dave Greenspan, District 1. There's a sales phrase: the speed of the pack is determined by the speed of its leaders. We as leaders at the council and the executive level have a clear and should have a clear and defined vision as to what the residents, what the employees, and those who serve our community can expect of us. There's going to be a culture change at the county government level. I can guarantee there's going to be a pretty significant culture change, because we are now going to hold our county employees accountable to a standard of providing the highest quality service to our constituents, which means you're going to have to show up to work every day. We've had that issue come up in the past where we haven't had employees show up. That's a culture change. We're going to permeate down to the county executive and county council level. A very good point, and I've been through this before as we reform government from one body to another. One of the greatest challenges we're going to have to overcome between November 3rd and January 1st and even beyond is managing expectations. There's going to be a significant amount of pressure for us to provide rapid change. As Ms. Simon said, be patient, it will happen, and that's going to be one of the great challenges that this government is going to have to address moving forward. Thank you.
We're certainly at the dawn of the day. This is an unprecedented time for Cuyahoga County. And noting the debate over who's going to hold the biggest microphone, I think what's most important is you're going to have 12 people with microphones, and it requires leadership, bona fide leadership. And I certainly don't want to minimize the responsibilities that the county executive and county council member is going to have. But there's a little bit of job responsibility. It's going to be cheerleaders. I mean, we've got 2 years of just a ridiculous corruption probe. The mindset of Northeast Ohioans has taken a hit. And we need true leaders that can literally rally the troops, get them to buy into this new government, and you do that by leading by example and showing that you mean business and that you're going to do things right, you're going to do things efficiently. And we have to have our county employees to jump on board with that. And I think it's up to us, county council members and county executive, to set that tone from day one. Thank you.
I think that we have a long-suffering county workforce. The majority, 95% at least, are great civic workers. We need to end their suffering. We need to close this chapter on corruption, as they watched people who came in out of nowhere and got jobs in good positions while they worked 20 years. We've got to end that. They know who they are. We've got to clean out that. That's the first thing we need to do. Second, I'd like them to buy into my vision. My vision is that we want everyone in Cuyahoga County, all the kids, to be able to dream, and if they work hard, achieve their dream. And what I'm going to do in terms of my program is, I know we can save $200 million a year. I know we can do that by efficiencies. Just look at what you've done here. We replicate what you've done here throughout the county. $200 million a year will save tax relief for the sufferers of the taxpayers and investments in the future. Thank you.
Well, if I get elected, hold on. The thing is that I believe that
the county government, the people in county government actually do, for the most part, do a very good job. But if their compensation isn't fair one to the other, if some people are getting paid more than others for doing the same work, or for being a friend of someone in the past that gave them a especially nice salary in comparison to someone who's actually doing much harder work, that needs to be corrected. We have to have a fair system of compensation. And, you know, despite they haven't gotten raises or incentives, they have a very good program of fringe benefits in comparison to the unemployed, the underemployed, and the people who are in poverty in this county. So I'd like to propose that we county workers do our best to recommit and try to create something new that fulfills that promise of the charter, well-being and prosperity for all our residents.
I too can vouch only for what I know, which is the county employees I've dealt with in the last year or so have been, without exception, superb. So at least those people are doing their job very well. But we are in the period of budget constraint for the county. There needs to be what the district calls right-sizing. We cannot afford to have people we cannot afford to have. This will be a difficult time. It has been difficult as the county has shed about 1,000 employees over the last couple of years. But the idea I would like to put forward is that of career perspective. When you cannot compensate someone very much, when raises are modest, one of the intangibles that I think is quite moving and satisfying to an employee is to believe that the manager who is responsible for that person takes a long perspective and wants to see quality performance rewarded over a career. These are people who want to stay with us for a long time. And a career perspective on the part of managers doesn't cost much, and it can have major benefits.
Vern Jones, Score District 9. What I want to say to you is I apologize. As every single one of us who have made you victims to any of this nonsense. We elected those leaders that you had to serve. I apologize because we were all duped. We didn't know this was happening. I know that the majority of the workers at the county are responsible, committed employees. And see, there's something we got to do though. We got to get out there and we got to bust our behinds and we got to bring economic development to this county. Because it doesn't matter what else happens if we don't bring economic development here. What we know as taxation and widgets is not going to sustain us. We've got to change the way we do business, but I apologize that each and every one of you had to deal with this. It wasn't your fault. We elected those leaderships. I elected them. Everyone in this room elected them. It's not your fault, and I apologize that you had to deal with this, but we're going to straighten it out, and we're going to have a better county for it. And I thank you for coming tonight.
That's great.
I guess let's start off by saying the measurement of success is always determined by its benefit. The council is vested with the responsibility of creating change. We were going to work actively to engage the positive process by directly listening to our citizens and balancing the budget, providing quality services, and developing cooperative business relationships with complete honesty and transparency. With this huge change, we would hope that all the other communities and departments, the departments within the communities will be on board with us. Right now, our main goal is to make the county our government county accountable to the people once again. I do have to apologize to you guys. I'm off tonight. I've been not feeling well, and I'm sitting here, and I apologize. You guys are all looking for answers that I have. I'm just not performing tonight. And again, I apologize, and thank you all for being here.
Ellen Conley, District 9. We do have some very, very good county employees, but we do have some people that have slacked off. When I was at the court, I'd be in that cafeteria at 8:30. Your job starts at 8:30. You're not in the cafeteria at 8:30 getting coffee. Your task, if you want to eat breakfast, come to work an hour earlier. When I was in the prosecutor's office, I'd come in there, somebody's sitting there having their whole breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning. That doesn't work. These are very good jobs at the county, and if you don't want to comply by the rules, then we have lots of people lined up. We have to review the position, we have to change the mindset, and we have to have a change in culture. Now, this is not going to happen overnight. We have to start at the top. The county executive is the person who is in charge of all hiring, firing, and personnel issues. We have to be supportive of the county executive. We have to have orderly processes for personnel management, and we just have to change the mindset to make sure that we get a full day's work out of every county employee.
Thank you. Well, this concludes the county executive and council candidate justice and public safety briefing. What we attempted to do this evening is to share information about the Department of Justice Affairs and to gather the insights, thoughts, and opinions of those who will ultimately lead as we transition to this, as our friends in Western Pennsylvania and Summit County told us, different form of government. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending, your participation. You're playing by the rules. And as we mentioned earlier, if there are other questions, I believe the candidates will be available as we adjourn to answer them and talk with you. Again, thank you very much. Safe travels home.